Hey gang, and welcome back to Game 2. We've got the same players, but different commanders. I'm still playing Meren, but Josh is playing his Omnath deck, Marco is playing Progenitus, and Jason is playing Karador. For openers, I kept Ophiomancer, Urbog, Green Sun Zenith, Swamp, Carrion Feeder, Pernicious Deeds, and Bloodstained Mire. Josh kept an opener with Exploration, Taiga, Stalking Vengeance, Cinderglade, Forest, Genesis, and Acidic Slime. Marco's hand had Badlands, Plains, Swords to Plowshares, Maze of Ith, Mirari's Wake, and Mind's Eye. Jason kept a hand with Savannah, Entomb, Mox Diamond, City of Brass, Vampiric Tutor, Hokori Dustdrinker, and Lotus Cobra. I win the die roll, so let's begin. I play Bloodstained Mire for my turn, cracking it and taking one to go find Overgrown Tomb tapped. Marco plays Hollowed Fountain tapped and passes to Jason. Jason explodes out of the gate playing Mox Diamond, discarding City of Brass, then playing Savannah, tapping that to cast Sensei's Divining Top. Josh also has a pretty great start by playing Taiga and tapping that to play Soul Ring. My turn sees Urbor come into play, and then I tap 2, casting Green Sun Zenith for 1 to find a Birds of Paradise. Marco plays Blood Crypt tapped and passes to Jason. Like any player with a top, Jason uses it at the end of Marco's turn. For his turn, Jason taps 2, casting Lotus Cobra, then plays Bayou, generating 1 black mana. He then uses that mana to cast Entomb, finding Thalia and putting her into his graveyard. He passes to Josh. For Josh's turn, he plays Exploration, then drops a Forest and a Cinderglades before passing to me. For my turn, I play a Forest, then tap out, casting Pernicious Deeds and Carrion Feeder. Marco, continuing his trend of doing nothing, plays a land and then passes turn. In response to Marco's end of turn, Jason casts Vampiric Tutor, taking 2 and putting a card on top of his library. During Jason's main phase, he casts Buried Alive, putting Viscera Seer, Academy Rector, and Blood Artist into his graveyard. He passes to Josh. For Josh's turn, he doesn't play land and instead casts Acidic Slime, becoming a party pooper, trying to blow up my Pernicious Deeds. In response, I sacrifice it for 0, blowing up Jason's Mox Diamond. I play a Swamp for my turn, then cast Awakening Zone. I move to combat, swinging Carrion Feeder at Jason. Marco plays another land for his turn, this time in the form of a Plains. He then does nothing and passes. Jason plays a Forest for his turn, generating 1 black mana with Lotus Cobra. He uses this mana to cast Karador and passes to Josh. Josh's first main phase sees a Wooded Foothills and a Forest come into play. He cracks the Wooded Foothills and takes 1. Using all that lovely mana, plus his Soul Ring, Josh taps out to cast Omnath. He moves to combat, swinging Acidic Slime at Marco. On my upkeep, I get a 0/1 Eldrazi spawn. I then move to main phase, playing Woodland Cemetery for my land. Paying 3 mana, I cast Ophiomancer, then I tap out, sacrificing the Eldrazi spawn to cast Meren. I don't sacrifice anything, and I have nothing in my yard to return, so I pass. Marco plays a Bayou, then casts Ranger's Path, getting 2 forests. At the end of his turn, I sacrifice the snake to Carrion Feeder, giving it a 1/1 counter. On Jason's upkeep, I get another 1/1 snake. On Jason's upkeep, he also uses 1 mana to look at the top 3 cards of Sensei's Divining Top. He plays a Swamp, generating 1 white mana with Lotus Cobra, then taps that Swamp to cast Thalia from his graveyard. He passes to Josh. At the end of Jason's turn, I feed the Carrion Feeder, just to save on some time in my beautiful voice. I always get a snake on upkeep, and I always sacrifice it to Carrion Feeder at the end of turn for the rest of the game pretty much. Solemn Simulacrum joins the party on Josh's turn, who finds him a land, which also nets him an elemental token from Omnath. Josh isn't done ramping though, and he casts Mana Vault, paying 1 extra thanks to Thalia. Moving to combat, he swings Omnath at Jason for 5. During my main phase, I sacrifice the snake to Carrion Feeder again, and move to combat, swinging the 5/5 Carrion Feeder at Jason. Jason tops in response, but then resolves to take it to the face. Marco plays Maze of Ith for his land, then taps 6 mana from Mirari's Wake. Jason plays a Brushland for his turn, generating a mana before casting Academy Rector from his graveyard. He moves to combat, swinging Karador at Marco, who uses Maze of Ith to untap it and remove him from combat. His second main phase sees Spirited Labyrinth come into play. At the end of Jason's turn, Marco Swords to Plowshares the Academy Rector, and in response, I sacrifice the snake to Carrion Feeder. 'Cause layers. For Josh's turn, during his first main phase, he taps out, casting Craterhoof Behemoth, giving all of his creatures +5/+5. Moving to combat, there's a great deal of debate on whether or not Josh should split up the damage or just straight shotgun someone to the face. Marco raises a good point, saying that he's got the worst board state, and that Jason and I have the best. As a result, Josh kills Marco. For my turn, I cast Liliana, Heretical Healer. I sacrifice the snake, giving the Carrion Feeder a 1/1 counter and flipping Liliana. I use Liliana's plus ability to force all of us to discard a card. I then sacrifice the Snake and the Eldrazi spawn to bring myself up to 8 experience counters. Moving to combat, I swing my 9/9 Carrion Feeder at Josh. During my second main phase, I float a mana with Birds of Paradise, then sacrifice it to Carrion Feeder. Using the mana that I made with Birds and 2 others, I cast Victimize, bringing back Birds and Woodfall Primus. With Woodfall's ability, I target Sensei's Divining Top, forcing Jason to tap it to draw a card and put top on top of his library. I said top a lot of times. I then sacrifice Woodfall to Carrion Feeder, causing its Persist to trigger, coming in and blowing up Josh's Mana Vault. I sacrifice Primus again to get it to my graveyard. Then, at the end of my turn, using Meren's trigger, I bring it back, blowing up Josh's Exploration. Jason draws his Sensei's Divining Top and then casts it, but unfortunately we don't catch that Thalia makes it cost 2. For his second serving, Jason brings out Hikori Dustdrinker from the graveyard thanks to Karador. Unfortunately, because we're bad at magic, Josh untaps his lands. Moving to combat, he swings all of his creatures at Jason. Lotus Cobra stops Acidic Slime in its tracks, while Spirit of the Labyrinth and Thalia take down Omnath. Jason lets the remainder go through, taking 12 damage to the face. Josh lets Omnath die, pinging Hikori Dustdrinker for 3 damage, and he passes to me. During my first main phase, I use Liliana's plus ability to force us all to discard a card. I sacrifice a Snake to Carrion Feeder, and move to combat, swinging my giant Carrion Feeder, my Woodfall Primus, and my Ophiomancer to Josh. At the end of my turn, Meren returns Phyrexian Devourer. For Jason's turn, during his upkeep, he uses top to look at the top 3 cards. Drawing a card, he activates top to draw an additional card. He casts Animate Dead, targeting Stalking Vengeance, and then casts Viscera Seer. Jason then swings Karador and Stalking Vengeance at Josh, killing him, leaving himself completely open for me to swing in and kill the next turn. Well gang, that was an interesting game. It wasn't quite short, it wasn't quite long. I think it does a really good job of highlighting threat assessment and the problem of holding a grudge from game to game. Josh was still kind of mad that Marco had blown us out in the game before, and as a result, killed him when he had the option. This might not necessarily have been a bad play, but it certainly wasn't the best play. At the time, Jason and I had better board positions, and frankly, Josh probably would have been better off lowering some of our creature count by making us block. To be fair though, Mirari's Wake would have enabled Marco to do a lot of degenerate stuff on his turn, so I can somewhat understand Josh's desire to kill him. I think Meren performed very well this game. I had a lot of ways to get creatures out that I could then sacrifice to Carrion Feeder. As a result, he got huge and I got a ton of experience counters. Jason played a bit conservatively. He had an explosive start, but frankly I think he was a little bit worried that if he drew as much attention as Marco had the game before, he would have been quickly hated out. All in all, I think these games really highlight 3 important issues. 1. Knowing what the meta you're playing in is like. Don't bring a competitive deck to a bunch of casuals. It's just not fun. 2. Make sure that who you're attacking is the real threat. And 3. Try not to let past games cloud your judgment. Anyway gang, I hope you all enjoyed it. There are always new videos coming up on Mondays, and as always, thank you for watching, and please be sure to like, comment, share, and subscribe.